There isn't really, besides that one particular one that's juicy, I don't think there's that many others.
I think there's another one that's juicy, but I look through a different lens than you guys do.
That is definitely true. Yeah, but that's why we like you here, because you like.
That's a feature, not a bug.
Thank you.
Oh, there's some good ones under nation state that I didn't see. Big whales.
I haven't even looked through the list yet.
Disney ditching Slack after gnarly data breach. Oh, okay. So someone got hold of their Slack, and then I remember that. Oh, whatever.
Well, the thing that's no, I'm not going to talk about it.
Post it in the chat if you don't want to spoil it.
Do you want to talk? Should we talk about the nomination? I kind of don't want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we should. We should mention it.
I'm going to tell everyone else to vote for somebody else.
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine? Okay. Should we just do it now, or should we wait?
No, we should wait.
Oh, all right.
Are you sure Ralph and Corey are joining us, or do they just decide to go have a pizza, just the two of them?
They put their names down on the sheet, so when you do that, you're committing.
Committing
or committed?
Both.
Notable follow-ups, nothing. We can get rid of the crowd strike now.
Yeah, that's been shoved below. We could probably just delete that at this point. I think that's fizzled.
For now. Wait till the lawsuits come. Then it'll pop back up again.
Well, we can add it back.
That'll be when it's fun, though.
It's a living document, this show notes.
Oh, I see that part of that story that I was talking about earlier did make it into the list.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, the second half of it did. So we do have an article about that.
Okay.
Alex, you're
bump that up to the top.
Coming in from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, drag it to the other ones so we don't miss it.
All right, Alex, did you watch the show?
No, I watched the trailer of the show that you were talking about, so I have it on my list. But
okay, cool. I wouldn't say it's like some of it is not kid friendly. Just
I noted that.
Cool.
Yep, I saw that in the trailer. That's why I double checked the trailer. I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna make sure the kids are asleep first.
It was the funniest. I was literally like walking around, then all of a sudden it just popped into my head, and I was like, oh, that was it. But
although I've taken the kids to DEF CON 3 times, so really nothing is out of excluded from being kid friendly anymore.
So I suggested Love, Death, and Robots to Alex. I was actually very surprised he's never watched it. Excellent. I think there's 2 seasons of it, mini short skits, right? Short cartoons that are awesome. But anyone else watch it?
I've seen a few of those, but not the whole set.
What was it again, Wade?
Love, Death, and Robots. Here, I'll throw.
Will this increase, decrease, or keep my IQ about where it is?
I'd say about where it is.
Yeah,
that's a safe answer.
I don't know. I feel like just about any show is like risky for lowering IQ.
It's not bad, right? It's like
no, it's a good show. It's
old.
Overall.
It's 3 different animated skits that are all they're usually kind of philosophical as well. At least some of them are. And different art style on every single one, which is always really cool.
Hi, Ralph. Why are you giving us the finger?
Oh, I'm in deep thought.
It's the thinking
what
finger.
You thinking about?
I'm just reading about all these news articles right now. Just soaking it all up.
Good. You'll have lots to say.
Yeah, I will. I'm also trying to quantify how we got voted as a finalist in this.
Hey, we were waiting till later.
Oh.
I guess we're going to talk about it now.
No, we don't.
Not only is your office haunted, your office is haunted, and you're spoiling the entire show in the pre-show.
What? I want to hear about how the office is haunted. I missed this.
Just listen.
Oh yeah.
Right then, a kid did scream.
Fine, I'll go on Amazon and order another motor.
Just give me your Amazon login. I'll do it for you.
Oh yes, I got some hard drives you probably want anyways.
Yeah. I want to see your Amazon card. I bet you Ralph's Amazon card is a gold mine of fun little things that no one knows exist, but you want.
Spicy.
Spicy. Hey, speaking of spicy, who's emceeing today, Corey?
I can do it. Ralph did it last week. Ralph beatboxes, I'll freestyle, and we'll take this train right off the tracks into the ditch.
That's where it always goes.
Hey, that's mixed metaphors there.
No, there's ditches next to trains.
I mean, what would you rather crash in, a train or a plane?
Train, 100%.
100%. Crashing, yeah.
I say train because I have done plane. So it just changes it up. So might as well cross that one off the list.
You've crashed.
Alex, it's not a bingo card.
I know it's. What is life if not a bingo card? Like it just makes the experience worth it.
Was this a small plane, Alex?
Yes, it was.
And now we want to know more.
I want to know all about it.
Yeah, no, it was a small plane. I was two. Basically, like the maintenance on it was a little bad. So one of the pistons just like shot out the engine, ripped through kind of the oil line and everything too. So hydraulics are out, and planes don't glide as well as you think they do, especially when they're covered in like oil. So it was just kind of a controlled descent into a farm field. And then they had to basically like take me in the car seat and just like chuck it out because they couldn't get me out of the car seat. Again, everything's covered in oil, so it was just basically it's like, okay, screw getting him out of the car seat, just pull the whole thing, toss it, and go. So
do you remember any of this, or is
I remember it. Yeah, people are like, no, you were two, you don't remember this. I'm like, I remember.
It's traumatic enough. Your brain wrote all of that to long-term storage. Yeah,
it goes into long-term storage, so it's like, yeah, I remember that. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good.
Fun details.
So we're dealing with disasters.
Good job surviving. Yeah. Good job surviving.
I
Turns out 2-year-olds have soft bones. Good for crashing planes.
Yeah. I always like that as like a plane conversation during turbulence. And I go, no, don't worry. Like statistically speaking, I won't be in a second one.
Lightning can't strike twice. Come on.
That's what I love about like statistics. Someone's like, well, if you've won the lottery once, you can't win again. And the truth is, it's exact same odds. Your odds don't change. You're not more or less likely to do anything.
The gambler's fallacy is that you get different odds the next time because you've lost so many times.
Yes, so I can't lose again because, I'm already this many times. Yeah, that's why whenever you're in Vegas, you never let them win. You keep playing until you win.
Yes.
I was wondering where Ralph's pants went that way.
Always bring Ralph with you when you go to Vegas. Honestly, Ralph definitely has good advice to dispense.
It makes it more fun for sure. I did see, I don't know where I read or why this article ended up in my feed, but it was, in essence, it was the safest place to be in a plane during a plane crash. And what they did to like figure this out is they crashed a plane. And they did it in Mexico, right? Because the U.S. was like, hell no. They flew it, and they jumped out of the plane right before it crashed, and they landed it in like a, what do you call it? Like a salt lake bed, not in the United States. It was in Mexico. And, they saw all the different, did all this analysis on it. Anyways, being in the back of the plane was where you wanted to be. First class was not where you wanted to be in this particular.
Oh, yeah. Like, you've never seen a plane, like, back into a mountain. Hit the front end first.
Yeah, you don't see planes get rear-ended usually.
Yeah.
Note I say usually. There was that Delta one that clipped the back end of a plane on the runway.
Oh yeah, they took the whole wing off. I mean, just
he backed into me. He backed into me. It's physically impossible. No.
I hope
roll a finger.
All right, let's go.
Welcome to Black Hills Information Security's Talkin Bout News. It's September 23rd, 2024, and you're listening to the award-nominated podcast, Talkin Bout News.
Facts. These are facts.
They must not have never watched us. That's
Ryan,
what I thought.
What's happening? Explain the Sands thing to me.
Well, apparently somebody nominated this podcast that you are watching or listening to right now for an award with Sans Difference Makers. What do they call it? Difference
It doesn't
Makers
say if the difference
Awards.
is good or bad.
Good or bad.
Yeah, okay.
That's
That's a
true.
good point. That's a good point. Okay.
It just
That's
says
true.
difference maker. They're like, Black Hills Information Security Talk About News has made the worst impact imaginable, but it has made a difference.
It made
I like
some kind of difference.
I like to think we're the Jerry Springer of cyber news, right? Like you never really
Who's
know what's
Steve?
going to happen.
Where's Steve?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but also I feel like we also have like there. If we were really the Jerry Springer of talking about news, I feel like we would have like so many bad jokes about pagers that have already just
All right.
fallen out of our brain.
Pagers?
Oh,
Okay, Montel, will you take Montel?
You take Montel.
we need a
Where are we
cyber-
taking a shoe?
Whoever makes the most politically incorrect pager pun will be nominated for the Making a Difference Bad Award. I mean,
Yeah. So
who knows? I guess vote for us if you care. I don't really know what this is. I didn't know. As someone who didn't know this award existed before we were nominated, I say it's really important and makes a huge difference.
Well, yeah, there is voting open to the community, but you have to provide them with your email. You click this big vote now button, and then even to see the category nominees for, we're not the only category. There's other categories here, but
There's
just to see who.
podcast of the year, which we did not get. I will say one thing.
No,
I
that
wanna
is what we got.
that's what we're
Podcast
nominated
live
Oh, it is
for.
stream.
Podcast of the Year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're getting nominated for.
Okay.
There's
Well,
an
Emmy.
acceptance ceremony and everything. We have to all fly to DC and
okay.
wear suits and
Yeah,
something. I'm
okay,
not even
no,
joking. I'm not even joking. That's real.
Okay. No one believes you, but the one thing I will warn everyone, if you're going to vote, you should expect that email to be sent to Sans Marketing Communications and from now until the end of time. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind.
And
I'm gonna
do
take this
not run the nomination and the voting through Burp Suite or anything to try and create like 1,000 entries. Like, we don't want to get disqualified. We know you. If there's someone out there that's like, I can vote 3,000 times easily. It's like,
I'm
don't
not
do
going
it.
to mention any names, but that used to be my favorite CTF. Every year they would do the annual security awareness training, and the CTF, the unspoke of CTF, was the first person who could discover how to do the training without doing the training, and then you would send a write-up to everyone else how to do the training without doing the training.
That is
And,
true. And I know
yeah.
for a fact 1 year, a particular person on the team spent more time bypassing the security training than it would have taken to just do the security training. But you know what? That's hackers for
That's
you.
what you do when you give hackers security training. They're going to hack it. So
Hacking is
true.
life.
yes,
Yeah.
very fun stuff.
All right, let's talk about the news. Let's get out, stop tooting our own horns and talk about the news.
Talking
I
about
feel
real
like,
news.
yeah, the one I already mentioned. I feel like it's the hottest story is the pager thing. I mean, this hit mainstream news everywhere. For those that aren't in the know, basically, Israel worked to set up a company that made pagers. It was a completely legitimate company that you could buy pagers from. They put bombs in all the pagers, or at least the pagers that were going to this particular customer, that being Hezbollah, and then remotely detonated them all at the same time. There was also a little bit of PSYOP action happening where they kind of convinced Hezbollah that their communications were being monitored and that they should use pagers.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like really, really long-term supply chain attack, but like an actual kinetic supply chain attack, not like this version of jQuery is outdated, but like a pager blew up. Unfortunately, the pagers did injure lots of children and non-combatants. So I guess we'll try to stay away from the political and like ethical things here, and more just try to stick to the like logistics and security outcomes of it.
So
What do pagers run on? Like
They-
is it a cell
Batteries.
network?
They run
or
on
is it-
batteries. They use a cell.
Well, I'm sure they run on batteries. No shit.
oh, you asked.
I meant the network. How like
You mean
how?
like
Yeah.
for communications?
I
Yeah.
can't believe you would say that.
Yeah, this would be a
because
meme.
I had
What
no
is
clue.
batteries
I
run?
remember
What is the
pagers, but I've never used one in my life, right? And if there's still communications going across it, right? There's still something. But and then even then you're gonna have to get on a phone to call someone
Yes,
after you
yes.
get
Haven't
So
you
let it be
seen The
known-
Wire,
Yeah, so
man?
what-
Come on.
Yeah.
What might be
I've seen
worth pointing out
Scrubs, you
here
know.
it might be worth pointing out like why they were using the pagers. So the reason they were using the pagers was because the way the pager system works is it's basically a broadcast system. So those messages that are sent to the pagers, they're just broadcast out like across the entire cellular network in whatever area. And you can pick up the pager messages with like a software defined radio or other hardware. So that would be the reason they were using these was to try and combat things like their phones being tapped. So they would have to call back the number that paged them on some phone, but the phone that they call back from is not going to be known by the people who are monitoring their communications. So they'd have to monitor like every payphone or every whatever phone in a certain area, as opposed to just tapping, one individual's phone.
So I just wanted to be known, this was not a hack, right?
Yeah.
So this was
they were packed.
It kind of
hacked.
was.
Yeah.
It kind of was a hack because they convinced Hezbollah to use pagers.
Oh no, they hacked their mind. That's for sure.
Yeah, but it wasn't. No, yes, you're right. It wasn't a supply chain hack like jQuery had a bad piece of code in it. This is a literal kinetic supply chain attack. And I actually wanted to ask people like, should we be saying it's a supply chain attack? Because in one sense, it's more accurate. But I feel like it's kind of mixing like a very aggressive kinetic attack to like a, something that just happens on GitHub and no one really cares about it. So
I think they had to literally get in the physical supply chain, like whether it was intercepting these things when they were manufactured, whether they were intercepting them at some point along the
or they were manufacturing them.
Whatever it was, they had to intercept them physically at some point and put.
Oh no, they made them. They
bombs.
literally. It was like an ANOM or ANOM scenario where they literally were running a pager manufacturing company.
So
How many pager manufacturers do you think there are anymore?
From what I understand from listening to another group talk about this, and they were doing research live on the air, was that they went ahead and they picked up the name of a company that no longer actually existed and had just given up their domain name that was in Hungary, and went ahead and set up the whole thing. They went ahead and paid a company out in Taiwan for the rights to go ahead and make these pagers, which these pagers were originally made in like 2014 or something like 10, 15 years ago, that had known exploits in it, and then went ahead and set everything up as a legitimate type company, all in the course from like 2020 to now.
Well, this was a long con for sure.
Yeah, it's a long con. I feel like, honestly, the thing for me that, like, I guess, like, ethically, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on, like, who's a terrorist, who's not a terrorist, what's allowed against terrorists, war and rules and Geneva Conventions or whatever, but I will say, like, it seems crazy to me because how could you possibly control the scope, like, of who is going to have these pagers at any given time? Like, it is
they
crazy.
They did it, and that's
me.
why a bunch of people got hit, right? And that's the same thing with the walkie-talkies they had, which
they're
they
just
did
making
exactly
these,
the same thing with.
They're making them, like, I guess just because it's sold to a known terrorist or whoever, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be holding it.
The ANOM network, right? Anyone could have bought that phone, but mostly criminals were buying that phone because it appealed to them. And then they built this whole, kind of situation where they got them to all buy in. I mean, it took a while. So everyone who was buying them was, for the most part,
it was word of mouth.
Government.
Word of mouth amongst a certain group.
Yes, exactly. And so, it really became a very targeted attack. Not to say that there wasn't, other things.
But monitoring versus explosives, two different things, right?
Yep,
if I was going to choose between having my phone monitor my communications, which, by the way, I assume
which is why they got
and blow up.
They got pagers because they were worried about monitoring, but what they didn't realize long term, they were just giving bombs instead.
Totally.
Can we get a map of payphones located? Like, how many payphones are actually out there, right? Like, you couldn't run an attack.
2600 has entered the chat.
Yeah, there might be a lot more in other countries. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming. But
I don't think it's necessarily payphones. I think it's just attribution.
It doesn't have to be
whether
a
it's
payphone.
whether it's someone else's cell phone, a payphone, a landline.
Yeah, you can't tell.
Yeah, it's decentralized. Basically, it's centralized, but then the actual communications are decentralized.
So,
arguably, the whole pager thing was a red herring anyway.
Oh yes,
they just convinced them that pagers were better, even though they're not. Which I guess we should get out there. Pagers are not better. Communications on cell phones are not just always monitored; they can be secured. So like,
it's funny because they ended up targeting them because they were getting pagers and no one else was getting pagers, right?
Right.
Like
Yep.
they got the thing, regardless of the security ramifications of whether a pager is more secure or less secure. They ended up all having pagers and no one else really had pagers. So they
Yes.
ended up just being an easy target to actually get them in a supply chain, which I thought is wild. But the craziest part of the fallout, think about it this way, right? Everyone's pager just blew up on them. Now they assume all of their devices, electronic, are just bombs, right?
Yep.
Because they have no way of knowing at this point. And so now they've wrecked their communications for months, right?
They didn't assume the walkie-talkies were.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and then after the walkie-talkies, they were like, okay, dispose of anything that has a radio in it, has
Yep.
a
Any way to communicate.
has a lithium battery in it, and anything that is connected to a network. And it's like, okay,
so what are
we're
they
just-
using? Cans of beans with
No,
strings
yes.
on
Like,
them?
the, carrier, like the guy that maintains the carrier pigeons is like, I told you so. Like this is,
I mean,
I think
like
there's-
landlines, I guess. But those
What's
can be
that
tapped.
new mesh network thing?
Meshtastic or something.
Meshtastic.
But those have the
I think
same
there's-
type of batteries, so
Yes.
there's more
But
to
if you
the
could, they
story.
could. It's simple enough to build it. Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just going to say there's more to the story than just what's happening in that neck of the woods in the world. Believe it or not, around the coffee cooler here in Florida, or coffee pot, water cooler, common Americans are kind of afraid of this now. I can't tell you how many people have said, oh my goodness, the phone in my pocket could blow up at any time. And I know there's some FUD going on, but I think this story does speak to Americans to think about, do I dare say what's in their pockets?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, I will say there was, what was it, the Samsung Galaxy
Samsung.
Note
Yeah, that's what
7?
I was
Yeah.
gonna
The
say.
Samsung Galaxy Note 7. So this is, I don't know if everyone remembers this, but it was banned. Like they would literally be like, if you have this device, you are not allowed on a plane because it had a defect. It was
Exactly.
not a
Yep.
terrorist. It was not an intentional thing, but it was a defective battery that could
But
explode
phones
spontaneously.
Are not designed to explode like this, okay?
No,
What
and they
did
put
is they
explosives
removed-
in them.
Yes, they removed pieces of where the battery was and put explosives in place, right? So,
Yes.
don't think that now your phone can be a bomb. It doesn't, there's a big island, of difference between the two, right?
Lithium
I mean, I
batteries.
guess-
Lithium batteries can heat up. They can catch on fire, but they are not noted for exploding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true. That is a good
True.
point.
But we're
Yeah.
all in the know. There's a lot of people who are already Luddites and fear technology, and this just fuels
Yeah.
that fear.
Well,
my
I
concern.
guess honestly, it's kind of funny because the psyops or whatever you want to call
Yes.
it that targeted specifically
Yes.
those kinds of people that are like afraid to purchase a normal device for whatever reason and feel the need to use pagers. And now you've put yourself in a list of 300 or 500 people that are using this product, which means you can be targeted. They're not going to be able to build at scale 10 billion iPhones or however many are built a year, millions at least, to that spec or to be like remotely detonated. So it's like, it's kind of funny how using stuff that's so specialized to one organization or one like group of people makes you targetable, whereas using stuff that's generic and everyone uses makes you harder to target. It's like
Yeah.
blending in, right? It's,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
mean,
That's the big message here from at least that I took from this, is that what they did is they tried to make their communications more secure, and all they did was just identify themselves, so they're not blending in the noise
Totally.
anymore, right? And
Yep.
so if you want to stay in the noise, they just needed to keep using phones, right? Regardless of the fact that they turned them into bombs. But if you think about it, if everyone was using pagers, if they were more ubiquitous, it would have been a lot harder for them to take this attack off, because now they'd have to individually identify, and that becomes a much different process. So,
yeah. I mean, either way, I guess it's an interesting thing to think about. It's not the first time this type of supply chain attack has occurred, but it is the first time it's been kinetic, and to my knowledge of being, I guess, there's been NSA revelations, Snowden revealed that, people could be intercepting like Cisco devices and putting wiretaps or other things or hard drives, like backdoored software for security purposes has been a long thing. I'm sure it's been actively still being done at the NSA or at other intelligence organizations. But this is the first time, to my knowledge, that it was used as a kinetic with the intent to harm a physical person, not security.
Stuxnet, Corey.
But Stuxnet didn't kill anyone. Did
Okay.
And-
it? I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it just broke a bunch of centrifuges and didn't actually kill anyone.
Yeah,
But
Ben from KC
anyway.
brings up a very good point that the medical context in hospitals, et cetera, they still are having a lot of pagers out there just because of the wet reception and the ease of use of them.
Very true. Very true. But I think that they're probably not using specialized hardware or whatever. They're probably just using like 1980s hardware. I mean, maybe. I have no idea. That's a good question. If you work in the medical industry and you know a lot about pagers, feel free to come on the show.
I've
let's move on.
intercepted a lot of the pager, a lot of the pager comms that in the medical field. So yeah, it was amazing that they use it, and a lot of times the communications are between just kind of decentralized things. Like there's an ambulance coming in with like a critical patient. They just send out a page that says, hey, we're trauma coming in.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the specialized, like, okay, well, we need to load up like this hospital special app in order to type out a message saying we're coming in. No, they just use the pager network for that. So you see a lot of that traffic with the.
I forget what it was, but I listened to a podcast a couple years ago that was talking about why are pagers still used, and I think the biggest thing is like, so there are like practical reasons. The batteries last forever, like weeks or months, so it's not something you have to worry about charging. People like having a separate device that's like, if this goes off, I need to wake up now and go do something, or if this, versus like people let their phones die or have notifications issues or other things. It's like, it's kind of takes advantage of human nature in a way that like the people who use pagers for the medical industry know when that pager goes off, it matters, versus like if it was just an app on their phone, it'd be much easier to ignore or, displace or whatever. So,
we're confused with other apps.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think arguably hospitals could totally just provide people with their own dedicated phones. And that's probably where it will go, right? Over time is like, there's going to be some replacement for pagers that is like, and I think in this podcast that I can't find, they had like a beta test for like a, some phone device that was designed to be a pager replacement. But I mean, these things are bricks and they last for months battery wise. So that's a selling point for medical people. Like, don't have to worry about charging it. But anyway.
Just think though, now when you watch Hackers during that one sequence when his pager goes off and he says, "I'm blowing up, man," it's got a whole new meaning.
Oh, and Mike wins. All right, you won the award.
Been working on that one for a while, but it still sounded good.
Let's talk about the Recaptcha Phish, because this is a really interesting one. I think Michael wanted to talk about, and I'm sure it's on everyone else's radar too. This is like the theme was like third-party phishing, right? Like that's the theme.
Yeah, so like I first learned about this from a post that John Hammond made on X sometime last week, and basically the Phish it looks like a CAPTCHA, like a typical CAPTCHA that you would see to verify you're a human on a website, but instead of entering a code or like clicking on all the crosswalks, you click the verify button and it. Or actually, you don't even have to click the verify button. That's right. I just ran this earlier on my own computer so I could see exactly how it worked. As soon as you open up the page, it copies a command, like a whole string of text, to your clipboard, and it gives you instructions to just open up the run box from your start menu, like press Windows key R and open the run box, and then press Control V to paste in that text. So when you paste it in, the beginning of the text is a command that executes whatever payload on your computer. In this case, it's an HTA file that it downloads from the server and executes on your computer. But following that command, then there's some text that you see in the run box that says like, human verification, verified or whatever. So that was a pretty cool portion of it in and of itself, because I thought this was a very novel way to get a payload executed and get around, a lot of the problems that we face whenever we're executing payloads, like mark of the web, actually being able to download the payload, all kinds of controls around different file types, all sorts of stuff like that. But then just like maybe a day or so after he made this post on X, there was a actual real world phishing attack that used the exact same technique. And it actually looked like they were using the proof of concept that he built. I think they were actually using something different, because it turns out other campaigns have actually used this technique before. But a really cool thing about this attack that happened was the way that they carried out sending these messages. So the attackers created issues on GitHub repositories, and so they had all these bot accounts that created all these issues on the GitHub repositories, and the issue would say there's a vulnerability in your project, and click this link, and the link was to say like githubscanner.com to see more information about it, and then you would go there and you would get this CAPTCHA phish. But they used GitHub's own infrastructure to send all the messages. So they'd create an issue on your GitHub repository, and then you'd get this email that came from github.com and looked very legitimate. And then they would go back and they would delete the issue that they had created to kind of cover their tracks. And you just had this email that looked like very legitimate. I got one of the emails from one of my repositories on GitHub. I know somebody else at BHIS did too. So it's just altogether a very interesting attack chain and a very interesting technique for bypassing things like EDR and getting a payload executed in a novel but very simple way, like very simple, where you just someone opens up the run box and pastes in a command.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really cool technique. I guess the one question I have is do we know? I mean, it was info stealers, so I'm wondering do we know the impact? Do we know how much people actually fell for this? I guess we'll find out later in the info stealer feeds, but it's kind of scary to think about. We know the developer angle is particularly weak of I think most developers' initial gut reaction would be I'm scared. What did my code do wrong? That they're not going to be thinking straight necessarily when they're reading this email. They're going to be oh God, what did I do? Or oh, this is annoying. I will say, to make a joke, most developers just ignore pull requests and issues. So
yeah. So that's I don't know why it probably didn't work that well.
That probably didn't work.
No, here's what
really cool
this is all they had to do was just talk crap about their code and say how bad it was. That would really get their,
Your code has been analyzed and is found to be less than a 7th grade level.
Did you use AI for this? It is horrible.
Well, Corey, to your point, usually we complain about our end users and people who can't read an email or are subjected to a phishing attack. Now it seems like they're coming after more of the security analysts and the developers. They've upped their game a little bit.
For sure. I mean,
I
think
for sure.
I mean, it's like most developers, it's a good angle, right? A lot of developers have, because this whole open source world is very decentralized, and very much relies on people that aren't necessarily getting paid or compensated or have security tools or whatever, and are just contributing code. But a lot of that code is run on production servers. So it's getting tokens or GitHub things really would be impactful to most organizations. It'd be a kind of a third party to a third party but it would definitely be a good angle.
Also, developers, I think, are the few people who are going to open up that terminal. We even know where it's at, right? I mean, I guess the command, the windows are, right? But still, it's just kind of interesting to just pretty much be hey, I got this command you should run just to keep going. You could probably mold that around anything, right? So any way to stop something. So any kind of hey, we had a check that's failing, and before you can go any further to get this coupon or to get this gift card, you need to run this command on the computer to validate you're a human or whatever. So
yeah, I mean, this dovetails with the Lazarus Group article, Ryan, if you have that one laying around. So Lazarus Group recently has been targeting developers as well, kind of using an old technique that we already knew about, but basically they're posing as employees of Capital One using fake job interviews, luring developers into job interviews, and then telling them they have to download software to do the job interview. So it's they're actually posing as the people hiring from Capital One, not posing as the candidates this time. So it's kind of flipped on its head, but it's targeting the applicant this time instead of the company itself. So I guess it's again, not necessarily anything groundbreaking from a technical perspective, but does show I think they're targeting scenarios where people typically have their guard down, right? If you're interviewing for a job, you're going to be all right, I want to do whatever I have to do to get this job, I'm going to do it. And that's the situation where Lazarus Group is taking advantage here. So
yeah,
I guess
And it's increasing the game of for social engineering as well, because it's not just sending the random emails. You get all that security awareness training saying like be suspicious of random emails, but these Lazarus group they're engaging in conversations. They're setting up things that have deadlines, that sense of urgency, so the developers may normally be smart enough to do okay, I'm going to do some code review, security checks on this thing, but no, they've set up that sense of urgency and they're really like time boxing them and making it harder for individuals to recognize that threat.
Yeah, I
Totally.
mean, especially if they're using like a recruiter or something and being like, hey, this is a great job, and then working through that process and then targeting the people they want and then being like, offering a good opportunity. And then by the time they're all through, they're like, oh, this has got to be legitimate. They're not even checking anything.
Totally, exactly. And it's the whole like shadow IT thing, right? Like maybe the emails and stuff didn't come directly from Capital One domains, but like there's so many teams, there's so many companies, there's so many different ways companies hire through other third parties.
Yep.
Like there's so many
Check out
steps
this
to the
test
hiring
at this
process.
website where you can download the executable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And another thing to point is like when you become higher up in the company and organization, when you're looking at least it's been true for me for like staff and principal positions, usually these tests seem to be a bit more prevalent. Like I have had to do way more tests, way more like, hey, run through all of this, code this, download this, try this, than lower level positions because they're trying to get a better technical aspect of you, which I find kind of weird.
I kind of wonder, like, should we have, I mean, I'm thinking we might already have something close to it, but like, do we have like OPSEC for job seekers? Like, should we do like a webcast? Should we do like a webcast on OPSEC for job seekers? Like, I guess,
Jason
basically,
does it a little bit, right?
I feel like honestly, like what we'd be advising people is like, just use a VM for each job application that has like a limited contained, scope of like a GitHub, or I don't know.
But could you imagine as an interviewer though, if they were to screen share with you and you realize that they're doing something in a VM, you're definitely going to think they're cheating in a way.
Really?
Right? Yeah. They're like, if you say I was interviewing you for an IR position and you're on the voice chat and then you're in, and they're like, all right, share your screen and do some like digital forensics or do some memory analysis to this while we watch you. And you notice it's a VM or in some way like that. How do you know that person is now controlling the VM and why are they doing it in the virtual? It would
I mean, that's
make me
really
question.
easy. Just be like open Notepad and type hello.
You would hope, but it's once again, it's like it's the whole interviewing thing, right? It's pretty hard. It's hard to go through, and usually there are malicious actors that will interview for you or provide you answers. I've seen people being fed answers during interviews and stuff like that, where they take a second, you can see they're reading something over here, and then they answer your question. So I think that would add to the sketchiness of it.
That's pretty funny. It's funny. But
I was going to say that this article also like kind of hooks back to like the importance of threat intelligence when we talked about that last week. Is that's a growing space, but here is where like Capital One has people impersonating them on LinkedIn. Like, I know there are tools that will absolutely light up those alerts going, hey, someone says they're a recruiter on LinkedIn for Capital One and they're sending out all these job requests. So I mean, it's one of the things that hopefully like from this Capital One really steps up their threat intelligence game. But that's one of the things that from our story last week, MasterCard invested in that and said threat intelligence is going to become a thing. And
true,
even from here, it shows that one of the ways that this can be defended against is for companies like Capital One to have that intelligence and be able to smack down those domains that are spun up misrepresenting the company, and LinkedIn profiles that are misrepresenting the company. Just get on top of threat intelligence, smack them down.
Alex, did I hear you say LinkedIn?
Yeah, you did.
That's a good segue to another great news article.
So
if you didn't know, go for it, Kelly. Go for it.
Oh, no, go for it. Wait, I think you're teeing that one up.
Oh, okay. LinkedIn stealing all your data and training their AI bot.
What?
No.
What?
So,
oh my god.
LinkedIn turned on a feature that is opt out, so which means you have to go and turn it off. It is in your settings and already turned on, where they are training their bot with your data. There's a big stink about it this week, and I believe the CEO of LinkedIn did state something about it. And I think the overall was they kind of did this wrong. Maybe they should have told users, but honestly, it's because we caught them, to tell you the truth. If we never caught them, they wouldn't have said anything.
Correct.
The setting is a little bit hidden. It did take me a second to find it. I believe it's you go to LinkedIn, you go to your profile, you go to settings and privacy, and then it's under data privacy. Then it's data for generative AI improvement.
Yep.
Isn't everything on LinkedIn already AI generated? Like
That's
never
exactly
seen
what
any
I
legitimate
said.
interaction.
Right.
LinkedIn. Okay, here's
I think
LinkedIn.
the thing on top of it that bothered me the most is the fact that it says, can LinkedIn and its affiliates. So it's not just LinkedIn that's taking this data; it's LinkedIn's affiliates.
They're selling
taking this data.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom it says the setting controls of training generative AI models used to create content. When this setting is on LinkedIn and its affiliates may use your personal data you create on LinkedIn for that purpose. It's creepy. It's one thing that they'd be doing it for themselves. It's another thing that they're saying, oh, we're just giving it to everybody else also to train their AI.
Reddit's already doing it. I know, like everyone else is doing it. They might as well get in.
Any AI that's trained on LinkedIn data is going to be the most long-winded, unnecessarily formal. It's going to be like, hello, thank you for reading my message. I am a developer based out of Uzbekistan. I would like to talk to you. This
Please
is not
download
AI
this.
generated. Whatever. This is the norm. Let's talk about, to dovetail this, we also talked about Slack. Ralph, tell me about Slack and Disney and how that's going.
Ooh. You want me to go on it, or who wanted to talk about it?
I said Ralph, but Ralph's just
Ralph.
Oh, yeah, no.
I didn't hear
dropped-
Ralph.
They
Well,
dropped Slack.
so there's to give everyone a little bit of context.
Yes.
Slack uses their data for AI generation. That's the connection. But also they were breached. Disney's Slack was breached.
Yeah,
and now Disney
Slack
is
was breached. It
Yeah.
was like terabytes and terabytes of data that got leaked online. All kinds of like sensitive or should be sensitive conversations of them, talking about stuff that's not very friendly customer facing at all, right? And Disney's definitely dropping Slack because of that. Yeah. Oh boy.
So what are they switching to? That's the question I have.
That is up
Teams,
for debate.
duh.
But
It's so hard to use, no one can extract the data from it.
But
so.
but hold on. Is there an actual news article that confirming that they're switching, or did you just make that up, Ralph?
No,
What?
there's news articles.
No,
That's what I
they
thought.
said that they are dumping Slack for sure. They publicly announced
But they
that
didn't
were
say
getting-
where they're going.
They did not say where they're going, no. Because why would
Discord.
you tell your adversary what the next thing to target is?
Okay, so I guess stay tuned. We'll see where they're going next. I mean,
They're probably going to, I don't know, they build their own
teams.
chat. I don't know.
It has to be Teams.
Teams.
That's
There's
the
nothing
only
else.
Other one.
What's left? Yeah, right.
I mean,
Here's the thing.
Matrix, self-hosted, Matrix,
Self-hosted, yeah.
Discord.
Here's the deal. Most of these large
Atlassian.
chat platforms, and this is the reason why this attack happened, right? They do not secure the data, right, outside of the tenant, right? So if you get access to it, you have access to everything, right? It's kind of like a free-for-all. And the reason why, there's a couple of reasons why, but the biggest one is search, right? So that you can ingest all this data for either training AI or just doing a search for something that someone mentioned 3 years ago, okay?
This is what happened to Uber too.
Yes, as soon as you get access to that, it is a feast of information out there and putting all this together with no controls in place. There's no actual data encryption. Sure, I can't like listen outside. I have to get access, right? But once you're in there, you have access to everything pretty much. And so, the data governance is just a nightmare with these platforms.
Ralph is
There's
also
controls
hung up.
you can put into. There's controls you can put into place in
Okay.
order to section.
But
the
not
data.
but not
if
from
they get
Slack.
admin, right?
No,
We
no,
got
no,
the
but not from
finger,
Slack.
too.
Slack still has access to all of that data, right?
Oh.
So
Yeah, but it
there's
wasn't
no
Slack
app-
that got infected, right? They
There's
had
no
a
app
malicious
that
insider
scales.
actor.
There's no
Yeah.
app that scales where that isn't the case. So
They're
that's
going to
that's
Jabber.
a foregone conclusion.
If you remember,
going-
the dude who gave them access, right, even got ousted by the actual attackers at the end of the day. Like they
Yeah.
said, this is the exact
was an
guy that gave us
insider
access
threat.
to. It was an insider
Yeah.
threat, and they
Yeah.
didn't lock down their internal communications enough, so that guy could go and read all these other chats,
Sure.
which is a super common occurrence. Like go into your Slack right now and search password, and hopefully you don't see
Well,
anything.
you know what?
But
You know what the actual crown jewel is? It's all the custom emojis. That's the crown jewel. I want to go into the Disney data breach and see all the custom emojis they had in Slack, because I guarantee you, a company with a bunch of illustrators, there had to be some interesting options.
So, Corey, I want to go back to your comment thread there. That was AI and the use of AI. So, back to LinkedIn just for a quick second here. One of the things we fail to realize is we don't have any sort of private legislation on AI regulation or data collection yet. But I do want to add, we do have 3 states that have data collection and AI governance laws. We've got California, Illinois, and Maryland. But to your point about all these companies using this technology, just basically vacuuming up data, and we just don't know what they're doing with it, which leads me to our next article to talk about the FTC report. And I know you guys are all dying to talk about regulations, aren't you?
I read it. I won't lie to you. I read it.
Okay,
I like
Wade,
the
tell us about it.
FTC. I like the FTC. The FTC is like,
Dude.
They're on our side, arguably.
Lena Khan is on fire, man. That's all I'm going to, like, she's all over the place. She is awesome. So pretty much the FTC came out with this report saying how all these huge companies are pretty much violating, sort of skirting around COPPA, which is, I believe, the Child Online Privacy Protection Act, right?
Yep.
So they're harvesting all this data. So Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, and they're saying, hey, we don't actually have children on our sites, but they do. And then they're using that to now feed into the AI. So children's data, not just your own data, not just your own Slack, is feeding the AI monster as well.
Yeah.
It's not just children's data.
It's everyone, but the children's stuff is explicitly banned. So that's like why they're going after that angle. Like, they're allowed to just monitor our data.
Yeah, if you remember, wasn't it Google was who got caught with a COPPA Act hardcore back in the day, and it was millions and millions. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was because Google was giving away pretty much Gmail to students for free, and then collecting that data and using it to sell ads, right?
I will say, unless the fines scale, it's not going to matter, because if, from the perspective of capitalism, if the fine is, it's just part of the cost of doing business, and all you have to do is factor it in on your accounting, and as long as you pay the fine as part of the business unit, then that's just the cost of doing business. It's like, UPS in New York City just gets thousands of dollars in parking tickets. They don't try to park, they just get parking tickets and pay them, and it's more efficient than actually waiting and parking properly. So,
Corey, that's a really good point. One of the things that report highlights is the incentives for these large tech companies to actually collect data. And they list 9 companies in there, the usual suspects, Meta, Reddit, that sort of thing. But basically, they're saying the reason why they're so concerned about this massive data grab is it actually, it hurts our children. It creates anti-competitive environment, because once you're sucked into a system, if you're part of a social media platform, you're less inclined to try a different one. It creates these walled gardens, like I mentioned. It's anti-competitive, and most of all important, it doesn't actually protect consumers. So if you get a chance to read the report, it's actually very interesting, even if you just read the executive summary.
So all we have to do is give the kids pagers? No, too soon.
Let me add one thing to this, though. In one of our previous newscasts, we were talking about the Chevron doctrine. Do you remember that? That was where the Supreme Court was trying to limit the powers of regulatory agencies under the Chevron doctrine. And interestingly enough, this report falls under Section 5 of FTC Unfair and Deceptive Trade Practices. So with the Chevron doctrine being talked about at the Supreme Court over the summer, we could see this go to court and sit there for, another 10 years.
I mean, listen, back when I was a kid, all you had to do was lie about your age. Are they exempt? Like, if I lie about my age, are they exempt from, or is it their job to figure out how old I actually am based on how many Spider-Man videos I watch on YouTube?
Not in the United States.
So, I mean, kids out there are just going to be like, I just have to say I'm 18 now. I mean, I think most apps force you to be at least 13, right? To use
Yeah.
them. Like I
13,
think
yeah.
Discord.
So don't ask me how I know this, but if you sign up for an Instagram account, right? If you go, hey, I'm going to make a new Instagram account or whatever it may be, it will ask you your birthday. Now, if you are under 18, you can have an Instagram account. But if you are over 18, you have to submit a government issued ID to have an account.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So
Because
the
they
sweet
can't
spot
have.
is.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
I was going to say they can't have a bunch of driver's licenses for people that don't have driver's license or they're kids and they shouldn't be having kids driver's licenses.
Yes, they can't. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have. It'd be like an ID of some sort. But anyways, I thought it was kind of interesting. And that is after using a real cell phone, a real email, all the real stuff, but they still wanted a government issue ID.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's interesting.
The whole bot thing is
Yes.
The sweet spot is COPPA is 13.
Yeah.
Ralph, you mentioned people getting driver's licenses, 15, 16. But then if you're 18, you've got to submit that government issued ID. So what are we doing between 13 and 15?
Yeah.
giving
Who's protecting
people
that
accounts.
data? That's the
To
other
throw-
thing too.
To throw another good book out there, The Anxious Generation. I read it because I'm a new father, and it's how to great reviewed the childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. So pretty much it's about how kids get pulled in with social media and everything like that, and how everything's built to be addictive and really get them on it as much as possible. And there's a couple really key things that they want the legislators to do, and one of them is raise that age of 13. Like why is it 13? Why or nothing else is 13? Like the average age they actually suggest is 16. But 3 more years I don't think is that much.
The only reason I can think of them picking 13, and this is just being a Jew, is 13 is in Judaism when somebody is considered an adult. The bar bat mitzvah age. That's the only reason why I can see that they picked that age out of anything else.
I'm Googling around right now trying to even find the demographics for like popular apps. Like how many under 13s? Like technically it would be 0, right? Like objectively.
No, you have to sign a waiver over. Like YouTube, you can be under 13. YouTube, you can be under 13, then you get put into like child YouTube, which is still like super weird. Which is even
just
crazier.
finding some statistics. It says here 85% of children ages 2 through 12 say they watch YouTube. Now, I'm assuming they don't have their own accounts. They're using their parents' accounts. No. But you got to wonder, like, the whole data governance thing is so confusing where it's like, well, if it's my account, but I give a kid access to watch on my account as YouTube Kids or whatever, is my account now part of COPPA? Or is it like, I don't know. It's so weird. Like the whole thing of like what accounts have what restrictions. I do not envy the developers who have to set all this up on their side of like, okay, what app is a kid app, or what ages different apps are allowed to use, all that stuff. It's pretty crazy.
I've got a little bit of insight into that because I set up a Google account for my child, a Gmail account, and I could use that if I set that up for him for things like YouTube, et cetera, and it does fall not directly underneath my account, but it falls under control of my account.
Yeah,
where I could go ahead and set all the parental permissions for him for what he can watch, what he can't watch, etc. But it's very weird how you set it. Was very simple, but very weird how it got set up.
So to bring up some interesting comments from chat, people are saying you don't need an account to watch YouTube, which is a good point. But I will say, I know from experience that even if you don't have an account, let's say you're watching in a completely new browser, as you continue to watch YouTube, it will build like an algorithm for you, even if you're unauthenticated. So like you don't have an account in the traditional sense, but you do have like some preferences that the algorithm has decided for you. So it's like, I don't know where that governance would kick in, whether it's when you have an account or just when they're building recommendations for you or whatever. Obviously, if they don't ask you your age.
No, there is age limited on some videos where they won't let you watch it because they claim it as violent or whatever like
that.
Right.
But it doesn't, is that 18 plus or is there like 13 plus as well?
It's probably just 18. I'm trying to think of the last video I watched where it's like, you need to log in. I'm like, I got to log in. All right.
I want to say that for YouTube they have the account in like the age block, because I reset up my kids and it asked for like, well, what age block are you in, and it makes recommendations based on that. You know, so it
Here's my
may
recommendation.
go. It's like, okay, well, you know, if you're in that age from 8 to 12, there's certain videos that are tailored for you, and then beyond that they go, okay, well, if it's rated T for teens effectively, then blocks that out.
All right,
Let's-
last article. Let's
Oh,
talk about
one more
Kaspersky.
thing, Corey.
Okay.
Here's my recommendation. I gotta throw it on the pile here. We should all have story time with Uncle Wade as he reads us "Anxious Generation."
Oh my god! Great. It's
That
it's
sounds
good.
like it's going
I
to give a
read
lot
it.
of anxiety to Wade.
It is.
All right, let's talk about Kaspersky, also known as UltraAV.
Ultra. What
I
they
mean,
do now?
I honestly don't know how to even react to this, but
I put it in
Starting-
the chat, Ryan.
yeah, it's in the
not
chat.
the thing.
Basically, starting Thursday, Russian cybersecurity company Kaspersky deleted its AV software from customers' computers across the U.S. and automatically replaced it with UltraAV's antivirus solution. So basically, the U.S. government added Kaspersky to the entity list, which is national security concerns. And this is kind of their exit. So I guess the question is, what the hell is UltraAV? Is the real question. Owned by Pango Group. Everyone knows who that is. Everyone knows
they're
Pango
huge.
Group.
Who's Pango Group?
Huge. Penguins,
Yeah.
Pangos. Yeah.
The Pangos are here.
I mean, this is so sketchy. Like that. I mean, they did send an email as part of our commitment to providing you with top tier service.
They sent
Kaspersky
an
US
email,
will be
so
able to
good.
maintain through UltraAV. Is it malware? We don't know if it's malware, but it's called UltraAV, which no one's heard of, and it's made by a company called Pango Group. So you can make your own decisions.
The leading provider of digital consumer security solutions. Our product portfolio includes everything your customers need to
Oh my
stay
god!
safe
Are we watching the
online.
video?
That's what
I'm telling you, he's got the voice.
I will
that's
say
the description of Pango Group.
a good metric for AVs is it Windows Defender? If it's not, you shouldn't be using it.
No.
Like, I mean, genuinely, Windows Defender is the best.
I was
Windows
writing
Defender is the
malware.
best.
I was writing malware in VS Code and it caught me and deleted it while I was writing it. And I was like, this is bullshit. Like,
Yes.
Dude,
Windows Defender.
it's like a movie. It's like precog. It like goes for like
Yes.
when you were born and kills you,
Yes.
so you can't write malware.
Yeah, I mean, the two, like, I guess I'll just make some blanket statements on AV. Number one, if you don't know how it got on your computer, it's malicious. That's just a general
looking at you, McAfee.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
If it came with a computer, if Kaspersky installed it on its way out of the country, if it came with another app, whatever it is, if you didn't put it on your computer, it's malicious. Number one, so that applies to UltraAV. So please nuke that. Also, you don't need a separate AV program. Use common sense in Windows Defender. You'll be fine. Just like don't be dumb, and you'll be fine. But yeah,
Don't
I mean,
worry.
I think
You'll have Ultra VPN installed as well. Did you see that?
I saw that it's like
You
it
want to watch
changes it to
Netflix in
VPN.
Vietnam and have those special movies? You're good. Ultra VPN also installed right alongside.
Okay, can we just predict next week that UltraAV gets added to the entity list? Like next week they're gonna be like, and you're on the list too. Get out, and then it's gonna be like, what's gonna be the next one?
Yeah,
AV?
Yeah, that'll be interesting because I think next week is the 30th, and that's where they say in the article that it's like Kaspersky's just not going to provide support for their products anymore. They're like, we're just done. And if you have any questions about UltraAV, go talk to UltraAV. Just stop talking to us. Like it just.
I think it's funny, and this goes back to kind of what Corey's saying, just about antivirus in general, is that like we live kind of in a different time, right? And a lot of these products are kind of on their way out in the sense of not keeping up with actual detections of current threats. And static analysis has kind of moved, a long ways away from where we're at as far as actually needing to be in kernel and all the other things. And so it is kind of interesting just to see some of these products as they kind of end their life, and other things have kind of moved in place that are actually able to detect, more malicious or, advanced threats. So.
Totally. Don't use AV. If you feel like you need it, just don't click that link.
I looked at one of the links somebody posted for like the transition to UltraAV, and it says like your subscription also includes like the VPN, a password manager, and identity theft protection.
Yes, they do
Like,
everything. I was looking at their website. They're kind of a
they just switched your product without telling you, and then it's like, oh, by the way, would you like to store your passwords with us, and would you like us to provide identity theft protection?
Dude, it blows my mind. These companies that exist, they just like pop up out of nowhere, and they're like, we are a top tier antivirus company now. You should install our stuff.
Give us your passwords.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to see people analyzing all this. Like, it's just going to be like, it's an open source Bitwarden password manager that they branded. It's like, I mean, it's insane. There is a generation or a whole target user of people that will be like, well, it popped up on my computer, so I use it. Yep. Like that's like their whole like.
The best
that's
thing
their
that
logic.
Pango Group doesn't even own pangogroup.com. There's a Pango Group real estate that owns pangogroup.com.
No, they're Pango.co.
That's too expensive, dude. They don't have that kind of money.
Right?
They spent all their money convincing Kaspersky to Trojan their software onto their computer.
Watch we hear Pango Group gets totally owned, and then the threat actors went after the wrong Pango Group.
Pango real estate. Pango real estate's going to be owned.
Just gets hammered.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there's also, we kind of glossed over this, but I guess maybe we should get into the technical discussion of why would a program have the privileges to just nuke itself and install another program on your computer without your consent?
Well, no, it was in the consent when the first time you installed it. So you consented to reinstall.
you by installing this program, you consent to us installing any other programs we feel like on your computer.
Yes, yeah, I mean, in essence, it probably says something along those lines for your safety.
Yeah, Pango Group is actually Lazarus.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, like I would, if you somehow are running. Also, that the last question, then we'll close this. How many people can there possibly be in the U.S. using Kaspersky, and who are they?
They're government contractors who
government
also have
contractors,
secret military documents.
I mean, back in the day, that used to be the thing you did, right? You got your computer, and you're like, "Well, I need antivirus. Everyone needs you gotta install it, right?" So it's like it was a thing for a while, and Windows used to be a lot more dominant than it is today, and that used to be the thing. But now it's kind of evolved, and Microsoft put it in their product, and it's not that bad.
True, that's a good point. Times
One
have
of our
changed.
friends in the chat mentioned Lenovo. Oh, I'll just leave that there.
Yeah,
I mean, I will say
these like bloatware deals are. I mean, we don't know. All the negotiations happen behind closed doors. But they've got to be exchanging big stacks of cash for this.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Who gets
to immediately get 1 million customers? Who doesn't want that? Right.
Yeah, you can literally buy 1 million customers or buy 1 billion customers or whatever. Like it is. I'm sure the contract negotiations for this kind of stuff is wild.
We could have done it. We should have done it, and we just installed Clam AV on everything.
All I'm thinking is like Broadcom just entered the chat. I mean, this is their whole company.
Broadcom's like,
Broadcom.
Oh, how many AVs can we buy in a month? Let's do this.
We're raising the price, boys.
Pango Company, I was just doing a quick little bit of research. Pango Company's website is pangoholdingcompany.com. They claim to have been around for 20 plus years. The date that pangoholdingcompany.com was created, 1/12/2024.
Well, that's impressive. They've even been around for almost a year.
Is Pango Group also owned by some Russian too?
Their mailing address is in Iceland.
Oh, okay.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, that's pretty close to Russia, if you ask me.
Let's look up the WHOIS registration date for ultrasecureav.com.
Is that the actual website? I think it's just pango.co.
UltraSecureAV, let's see. It was originally registered July 17th.
Again, they say that they've been around for 20 plus years.
They've been around for 20 plus years. Don't question the fact. Honestly, let's go back through the Wayback Machine and see if we can find like a North Korean text on the page.
And this is how we find out it's Recaptcha live.
Yeah. This investigation will continue offline. Thank you for coming to the news. We will talk to you all next week. Thank you for coming and have a nice day.
Happy Pizzamas.
Before we sign off, we've got something coming up in a few weeks. Wildless Hacking Fest.
Oh,
that?
I forgot about that. I forgot.
And that week, we're not going to be on Monday. We're going to be on Wednesday, and it's going to be a little bit later than usual. So heads up, everybody.
Live.
A little bit
We're
later.
be
and a little
live
bit
from
shorter.
Wildless Hacking Fest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and,
I don't
and a little
like
bit
it.
shorter.
Yeehaw.
I'm scared.
Don't worry, we'll have walkie-talkies by then.
Okay. That makes me feel
Pagers?
better.
No pagers. No pagers.
Oh, God.
Pages
Too
are allowed.
soon.
Weird reason.
All right. Thanks, everybody.